If I'm looking at oil around $40,
Yes,
you have to be hiring back crew. You have to be completing wells. Are you?
no, Alex. $40 is it's a blessing in disguise. Nobody's going to add rigs. Nobody's going to add fleets at $40 oil. There is some concern. There was two large producers announced yesterday. They were adding back their horizontal production in the Permian Basin. I'm sure that's going to have some kind of effect on the OPEC Plus meeting. As you know, Russia has not liked U.S. shale growth, but I'm trying to convince OPEC members that our industry has changed. It's all about less growth. It's all about returning back to the cash back to the shareholders. But no, I see no change at 40. We need to get up to 45 to 50 before you see people adding rigs and adding frac fleets.
How long are you going to be able to sustain that view when you take a look at, say, the curve and how much we've re-rated to the upside all across the curve within just the last few weeks? How long until your shareholders are like, Scott, let's go, let's drill, let's make this cash flow?
No, I think the big push from most investors is slow your growth down. So I think the days are gone of double-digit growth for the U.S. shale industry. As you know, most companies have too much leverage. I think the first dollar is coming back for a lot of companies, not Pioneer because of our great balance sheet, but most companies are going to use that cash flow to repair balance sheets because the equity markets are closed. So there is not going to be a rush back to adding activity at all, in my opinion.
Have you learned anything about decline rates? One conversation in the oil industry is as you don't put capital into current wells and you don't drill new wells, your decline rates are going to really speed up, which means production is going to be really curtailed in 6 to 9 months. Can you give me any insight into where we are in that conversation?
Yes, as you know, most shale producers, their average decline rate is between 35 and 40% per year. If there's no investment, I think most companies are trying to keep their production flat with some small decline, maybe 10% from 2019 levels. The big unknown is are people going to hedge in 2021? Most hedges there's about 23 billion of hedges in 2020. Most of those roll off. And then when you look at 2021, you're essentially a little bit of a $40. So who's going to hedge at $40 thinking there's an upside? So I just don't see there is going to be a natural decline for U.S. shale. I'm still predicting we'll be down. U.S. production will be down below 11 million barrels a day by the end of 2021 because of that natural decline, and we can't keep it growing.
Scott, good morning. It's Guy in London. Picking up on that last point, when do you actually see the market coming back into balance?
I think the key is demand in this equation. So on the demand side, we have to watch people's driving patterns. As you know, a lot of discussion about nobody's flying on the airlines. We're all locked down in our various countries. So the airlines use about 8 million barrels a day. And so I'm pessimistic that airlines don't come back until we get a vaccine, which will be in 21. So I expect to get closer to the 8 million barrels a day in 22, 23. And that's when I expect to get close to 100 million barrels a day. So I think we're going to see demand get up to about 94, 95 again fairly quickly as countries open up. And then it's going to stagnate until we see something happen to the airlines. But we have to watch people driving. In China, it's picked up. In the U.S., picked up. And so the question is, how much demand for gasoline are we going to see with people driving? In fact, we'll probably see more driving. So demand is really the key question.
Keep an eye on the mobility data that we're all watching so carefully, I guess. Let's just talk a little bit about kind of the input cost story for your business right now. We're spending so much time talking about employment. What does it look like from your perspective? How many people have you kept on? How many people can you re-employ? How has the nature of the labor market changed in the oil patch where you are?
Yes, most of the layoffs have been in the service industry due to the 75% decline in the rig count and also the frac fleet count. So most of it's been in the service side. Several producers that are way over levered, have too much debt, have laid off. Pioneer has not done anything at this point in time. We're still evaluating the needs for activity over the next 2 or 3 years. So the big question each of us are asking around the world, are we going to be in a $40 world or $50 world, or we're going to return to a $60 world. And that's the $64 question that there is no answer at this point in time.
A lot of that answer, Scott, comes from what actual U.S. production is right now, because it's the fastest to turn on and off. In the latest report, it says 11.2 million barrels of oil a day. Some estimates are already down to like 9. Can you give me a sense of what the real production is coming out of the U.S. right now?
Yeah, I think most people have us down about 2 million barrels a day, Alex. So we peaked at 13. So if you just use the 13, we're probably down below 11 now. But the problem is we're adding back almost all that shale production in the months of June and July. And talking to the pipeline companies, that production is coming back, both from the Bakken and also from the Permian that were curtailed. So we're only going to see 1 month of curtailment. And that's one of the reasons we were going to the Texas Railroad Commission to get a few more months in there to reduce this overhang of storage, both in the U.S. and also around the world. So, but eventually, the decline factor is going to factor into U.S. shale, and it will decline over time because people just don't have the cash flow to grow production, or even some of them keep it flat. So I'm still optimistic that U.S. shale will be down a couple million barrels a day.
You say you've been talking to OPEC. I'm sure you're putting pressure on them to keep extending the cuts. What are you hearing on the ground as we kind of wait for this meeting to be moved forward?
Yes. In fact, I'll look at y'all's news early this morning, and I can't tell whether or not the move's been extended to June 4th. I saw the statement by Russia and Saudi that they want countries such as Iraq and Nigeria to be more compliant. And so it wouldn't surprise me if they either delay the meeting or, but I was hoping there would be an extension of the 9.7 million barrels a day past July 1st. That would have been a positive move to the marketplace, but they could be satisfied. So I don't see much happening at this OPEC meeting at this point in time. There'll probably be no change. It would be my surprise if they make any changes to their current agreement.